Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Simisola Adigun. A new report by PricewaterhouseCoopers PwC has revealed the Nigerian advertising industry is set to reach an estimated 893 billion naira by 2028. The report, commissioned by the Advertising Regulatory Council of Nigeria and funded by various industry associations, aims to highlight the advertising sector's contribution to the nation's GDP, its value and multiplier effects. The findings were presented at a stakeholders meeting where the chairman of the Multiplier Study Committee, Femi Adelusi, explained the sector's significant impact on economic growth. According to Adelusi, Nigeria's advertising industry contributes an estimated 605.2 billion naira to the nation's gross domestic product currently. Adelusi highlighted that the total expenditure on marketing communications reached 605.2 billion naira in 2023, reflecting a compound annual growth rate of 18.7% over the past 6 years, up from 216 billion naira in 2018. Consequently, the industry's contribution to Nigeria's GDP is anticipated to rise from 0.7% in 2023 to 1.08% by 2028. The NNPC Limited has signed a project development agreement with Goola LNG for the deployment of a floating liquefied natural gas offshore Niger Delta that would deliver 400 to 500 million standard cubic feet per day of gas. According to NNPCL's Chief Communication Officer Olufemi Shuneye, the project development agreement is another major milestone achievement towards ensuring gas commercialization through deployment of an FLNG facility in Nigeria, which is in line with President Bola Tinubu's resolve to rapidly commercialize Nigeria's gas assets for the economic prosperity of the nation. He added the agreement aims to monetize vast proven gas reserves from shallow water resources offshore Nigeria. The PDA also outlines the monetization plan that will utilize approximately 400 to 500 MMSCFD and produce LNG, LPG and condensate. Shuneye further explained that the partners, NNPC Limited and Goola LNG, have both expressed their commitment to achieve final investment decision before the end of Q4 2024 and first gas by 2027. It's time for a break and we'll return with company news.
Hello, Alahaji. Right now I'm in Abuja. No. Hello, Adamu. Right now I'm in Kano. Yes. When I get back, I'll just call you. Look, what is wrong with you? I'm talking on the phone and you are gesticulating and doing. What's wrong with you?
Daddy, where exactly are we as we speak?
Are you alright? This is Lagos.
Well, you just lied to someone that we're in Abuja.
Keep quiet. Who told you you can tell an elderly person is lying?
Daddy, you just lied. And by lying, you are raising corrupt children for the future of Nigeria. That is corruption, not in my country.
Corruption, not in my country. Welcome back. Business conglomerate Tolaram Group has agreed to acquire Diageo's 58.02% shareholding in Guinness Nigeria PLC in a landmark deal set to reshape Nigeria's beverage market. Guinness made this announcement via a press release on the website of the Nigerian Exchange Group. The transaction, expected to close in fiscal 2025, pending regulatory approvals, will also see Tolaram enter into a long-term licensing and royalty agreements to continue producing the iconic Guinness brand alongside Diageo's ready-to-drink and mainstream spirits locally. Diageo, while selling its controlling stake, will maintain ownership of the Guinness brand, ensuring its legacy continues under the stewardship of Tolaram. According to the company, this move aligns with Diageo's strategic vision to retain brand influence while leveraging Tolaram's extensive distribution and manufacturing capabilities. With over 50 years in Africa, Tolaram is one of the continent's leading consumer packaged goods companies, backed by a history of successful joint ventures with leading multinational corporations. Experts say this deal potentially reinforces its position as a trusted partner in the African market. South African pay television company MultiChoice Group has reported a $38 million loss before tax in its financial year ended March 31, 2024, attributing the loss to currency volatility and weak consumer spending. According to a statement by the owner of DSTV and Showmax video streaming businesses, volatile and weaker local currencies, power challenges in the nation's markets, and a weak consumer environment due to rising inflation and high interest rates have created an extremely challenging environment for the group's customers and operating segments. Reported group revenue fell 5% to 56 billion rand, but grew 3% when currency swings were stripped out. Its active subscribers fell 9% to 15.68 million, mainly due to 13% decline in the rest of Africa business as mass market customers in countries like Nigeria had to prioritize basic necessities over entertainment. However, MultiChoice says it will accelerate its cost-saving program with a target of 2 billion rand in the new financial year. The company, which operates across 50 countries in sub-Saharan Africa, also plans to cut capital expenditure and prioritize customer retention. We'll go on another break. When Money Matters returns, we'll have an economist dissect the implications of a new minimum wage on Nigeria's economy. Stay with us.
In the last 3 years, we have built a multi-purpose center, which is the envy of all in our constituency. And I can tell you that the people who are living there are already enjoying it.
Guy, do you think what this man just said is true? See, I seriously doubt. I'm sure it's one of those their silly lies.
And wait, do you know there's a way to find out if these things he's saying is true or not? This is the Construct app. It gives people like us a sure way to track implementation of constituency projects. It gives valid and verified information on location of projects, amounts allocated, amount funded, the level of job done, and even the profiles of concerned legislators. You and I can post directly on this app.
Are you serious?
This is the Go-To app if you want to know how our Commonwealth is being expanded by the government.
Wow. Let's even see if what this man said is true. Show me.
The Construct app is developed by Other Paper Nigeria with support from USAID and is available on both Google Play Store and Apple Store.
And it's true.
Of course, I told you.
Welcome back. Economists in the country have expressed reservations over the increase of the nation's minimum wage. According to them, increasing the minimum wage without corresponding productivity has serious economic implications for Nigeria. In his Democracy Day speech, President Bola Tinubu assured the organized labor that an executive bill on the new national minimum wage for workers would soon be sent to the National Assembly for passage. Meanwhile, the federal government has admonished organized labor to consider the broader economic implications of its push for an unrealistic higher national minimum wage. The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, who handed down the admonition, hinted that the 250,000 naira minimum wage demanded by labor could undermine the economy, lead to mass retrenchment of workers, and jeopardize the welfare of Nigerians. Well, let's get a broader understanding of these issues. Economist Mukhtar Mohammed is my guest on the program. Thank you for making our time, sir. Now, you've monitored development on the negotiations for a new minimum wage and how long it has taken, yet there's been no agreement. You look at the various economic factors that pose a significant challenge. That's inflation, particularly food inflation, the increase in borrowing costs, electricity tariff. Now, how do these figures shape the labor's demand and expectations from the government?
When you look at labor demands, the demands are good, but you know that it's very unrealistic for government to pay you what they are demanding from about 497,000 to 250,000. I think government might not be able to pay that. And again, it's not about government alone. Maybe government will be able to pay their civil servant that, and also not have money for developmental projects. But the private sector will be the worst hit if such a policy see the light of day. That means the private sector might not be able to pay, and then if they have to pay, there will be a lot of job losses. So I think labor should be realistic in their demands. Inflation ordinarily is about let's say approximately 34%. And so ordinarily in key countries, I mean in developed countries, like I say, inflation is what you use to negotiate your wages. Once your inflation goes up, your wages goes up beyond your inflation, maybe by 10 or 15%. So, but again, you can say that food inflation is about 40%. So with what the government is offering from from 30,000 naira minimum wage to about 62,000, you say that's over 100%, and so that should be able to deal with inflation. But again, that is neither here nor there, because when you look at the government official figure in terms of inflation, then you now look at the market inflationary rate. The disparity is very wide. So that's why people like us will advocate that a minimum wage should be between 90 to 100,000 to take care of the real inflationary pressure that a lot of Nigerians are facing, especially the civil servants and those in the private sector.
So what's your assessment of the government's approach to citizens' welfare? Because all we hear is how the economic policies, that the Bola Tinubu administration has implemented will be beneficial to the citizens. Are you convinced of this?
Well, now we're sitting here, we're looking at 1 year of the current administration. You won't say those policies have been very beneficial to the citizens, especially a large percentage of the citizens. But these policies are not meant to be beneficial in the short term. They are long-term policies. But again, long-term policies should be drafted with cushioning effect so that it will not be so hard. It's because it's only the person that is able to live longer that will enjoy the benefit of the long-term policies. So what I think the government had really gotten it wrong was the removal of subsidy, floating of naira, fantastic fantastic idea, fantastic. But in terms of time, maybe not even time, I'm not looking at time, but looking at the strategy in place so that those effects will not hit Nigeria hard were not in place. So that's why a lot of people will say that they don't seem to agree that the government policy has really. I personally also agree that some of these policies have not had any good effects on the citizen. But if these policies are really, really and truly economical policies the way they are, without we mixing it with political undertone, I think they will achieve the desired results in the long term.
So organized labor and Nigerians in some circles say the minimum wage increase of either 62,000 naira or 250,000 naira is in national interest based on economic realities? And do you think an increase is sustainable given these same economic realities, and also considering that some states are not even paying the current 30,000 naira and have even declared they can't pay 60,000 naira as minimum wage?
Well, I think sometimes people only look at the states, and I ask myself, when you look at the state and the federal government, how many workers do this state and the federal government employ compared to the private sector that employed over 80% of Nigerians? So nobody's looking at that, and I think that is why a lot of Nigerians should look at that area, unless they are saying the minimum wage is just for the public civil servant, then you leave the private sector out of it. Because for states, I think for state government, I think if they cut their excesses, they should be able to pay. Revenue has really gone up by over 200% since President Tinubu came to power. So they don't have any excuse not to be able to pay the minimum wage. For state, for the federal government, the same thing. But for the organized private sector, high interest rate have not helped that sector in growing the economy. A lot of companies are exiting Nigeria because of a very high environment that is full with a lot of volatility, especially in exchange rate for the manufacturing sector. And then you look at tariff that in terms of those that bring goods into this country, the tariff keeps getting high by the day. Today, the government is saying 1,400. And so if at last government agreed on a particular policy with the organized labor, they will also have to look at the private sector and begin to take a bite of some of their own revenue. Maybe in the area of tariff, those that bring in good, government may need to take a bite of their revenue and make sure that maybe they will have to knock off tariff over some manufacturing equipment and others, so that they will be able to pay the minimum wage. Otherwise, what will happen is that most companies will start doing either, whether you call it like sizing or downsizing. That could be the order of the day, especially in the private sector. I think the most we should be worried about is the private sector, which is the key driver of the Nigerian economy. And many of them will be able to afford a high minimum wage as it stands at this time. I think it will be very difficult.
Now, the increase of a minimum wage is expected to improve the spending power of citizens, but nobody is talking about the possible direct impact it would have on the economy, especially without productivity. How much impact is this going to have on the country's economy?
Well, when you talk about productivity also comes with through minimum wage, because it's, again, when you are well paid, you'll be productive, and then you can hold people accountable. And so that we must not use that as a yardstick to say that we cannot pay the new minimum wage. Now, when you look at Nigerian economy is rather a consumer-driven economy. And that is why some of the companies that you have in Nigeria are consumer goods economy. So when the consumer earning power is low, that means that's the over 8% of the Nigerian economy is in a state of comatose. So what we really have to do is to really look at what is the consumer power in terms of growing the economy. And so what it means is that if you put more money on the consumer, they have a way to make sure the economy is growing, and then the area of job creation, in the area of profitability of companies, and that could even make more companies want to come to Nigeria when they see the profit they can make, because the consumer have earning powers. So when you look at most of the companies that are exiting Nigeria, it's not because, not just only because of volatility in exchange, but also has to do with consumer inability to buy some of their goods. So the productivity is very low. Their consuming power is very low. So when some people talked about, oh, if you begin to build, then it will cause inflation, but you've forgotten that this Nigerian economy is a consumer-driven economy. So once they don't consume, the economy also will not grow. So I don't ascribe to that. In the area of productivity also comes with good pay. So once you are paying somebody very well, then you are able to hold him accountable in the area of productivity.
Finally, let's discuss the increase in FAC allocations for various states. What should be the focus to help address the fallout of government's economic policies that have led us to where we are? And what other areas can Labour focus on aside from an increase in minimum wage to help workers navigate these difficulties?
In the area of FAC's increments, I think that has been ongoing since President Tinubu came to power. And so a lot of these state governments, governors, local government, they've not been able to judiciously utilize some of these funds. And that is why Nigerians are really crying, because we've not seen so much of development commensurate with the kind of effects they have been earning this way. And that's why workers are very, very certain that government should be able to pay the minimum wage because of the kind of increment they have gotten from the federation account. And so that is why I totally agree with them. But like I said, the private sector is one sector that really needs the government to really aid them. Maybe government need to take a bite of the revenues in terms of import of some of these duties so that the private sector will be able to pay some of these taxes, especially with the high cost of electricity tariff also. That is supposed to be one of those areas that Labour should be, or Labour said they will be negotiating. Well, as it stands now, I think the focus is more on the minimum wage. Nobody's talking about the reduction in the electricity tariff, like what Labour wanted. And then second to your second question, and that is why I'm saying that, okay, come with that. If Labour is able to push reduction in the electrical tariff, that also will increase the earning of workers. Then there's also looking at the structural side, telling governments that, look, inflation is at this rate, core inflation is on this rate. So as it stands like that, even if you are paying us X amount of 62,000 or thereabout, that means that by the time we take up inflation, we will not be able to. So we're asking for a tax holiday for the next 6 to 7 months or 1 year. When the economy gradually improves, then you can take up that holiday. At that time, inflation would have come down, and then we'll be able to have a living wage. I think that is what Labour also should be looking at in the structural way of negotiation.
Before long, we'll get to know the decision of the federal government on a new national minimum wage. Economist Mukhtar Mohammed, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. And that's how much we can take on this episode of the program. We'll see you again next time. Bye for now.